All right, everybody. I'm Chris Hart. I'm your first vice president running for local president. Sounds kind of weird when I say that. I haven't said it very often.
It sounds real natural.
I'm here with Chad Ledson, or Chief Ledson, as some of you like to call him. We'll just call him Chad today.
See, I knew it. I knew you could say that with a straight face.
Well, I know. It's hard.
I've yet to see anybody say Chief Ledson with a straight face.
Chad, you're here. I invited you over. You're going to help me out with just informational podcast for my campaign for local president. So we're just, I guess we're kind of going to start. If you want to introduce yourself a little bit, maybe I can talk about myself if that's what you want.
I would love that way more. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I've never done a podcast before, and I've never been in the Divot Room before. The Divot Room is amazing, by the way.
It is a nice place.
It is really cool. I'm a little bit, these headphones that you got me wearing, I can hear my voice in it. And I'm sorely disappointed because I thought for sure this is going to make me sound like the Todd.
Well, just wait until you listen back to this, because we do have a hard time listening to our own voices. So
I can only imagine. Yeah, I'm just here. I'm excited to hear that you were running for president. And I've got some questions, some thoughts I'd love to know a little bit more about, kind of where you're wanting to go and that kind of thing. But I guess the place to start, I don't know, aside from the stone-faced, I tried to time that with a sip.
yeah.
Who is this Chris Hart guy?
The resting Chris face, is that what you like to say?
Tell me the resting Chris face. There's got to be more.
It's interesting because, yes, over time, I've been at busy stations majority of my career, right? I've worked at I think the longest stint was 7 years in Aloha, FTO, saw Engine 92 come through there. Busy station, right? Damn near killed me. And I kind of got this reputation as the hatchet crew or the axe man. I don't really know how it worked out. But I guess for me, one of the things that I always tell people is, if you don't want to hear the truth, then don't ask me, because that's all I kind of do is I just speak the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Pretty straightforward. I've also always told people, if you want to see the real Chris Hart, see me around my kids, because that's kind of where, I let my guard down for sure. Not that I put a guard up, but I kind of have alluded to it in my letter for my intent to run. Ownership and gratitude are two huge key words in my life. I'm not going to get into the weeds about how and why, but you take ownership for your actions. And just show gratitude and have gratitude. And it doesn't always mean smile, because even though I love to smile, and I do smile a lot of people might not necessarily think that way. But just to be able to take ownership for your actions in an honest way, show gratitude towards one another and to yourself, to be honest with you, and just be happy with where you're at in life has gotten me to this point. And, I am who I am. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Now, those emotions might not necessarily be there, but, it's always nice. I think one of the greatest compliments I can ever get in my career is when I have a probationary firefighter that, in my mind, I kind of felt like I was really hard on. But then they come back and really just say, thanks for everything you did for me. I really appreciate my time with you. That's always great.
Totally.
I think people, I always give people third, fourth, fifth impressions. I might make a judgment of you the first time I meet you, but the second time I meet you, I'm going to make a new judgment about you, and then third and fourth and fifth, because I know I'm going to give off a bad first, second, third impression. So I hope you do the same.
That's mutual.
You know what I mean?
It's totally mutual.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's maybe why I was excited to hear that you were running, because I didn't know you super well, and I don't even remember why when my kids had their birthday. So I got twin girls.
Yeah.
This is probably 6 or 7 years ago. Somewhere along the way, we crossed paths, and I invited you to their birthday party.
Yeah, I think it was because didn't you just move to Westland? Or
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
And you knew that I lived in Westland. You're like, wow.
And so I was just being polite. I didn't think you were going to take me up on it.
Damn it.
Sure as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and your great family showed up, and like, holy cow, this guy is a really cool dude. Like, he smiles. To your point, right? You want to see the real Chris Hart. You see him around your kids. Like, I got to see who you really are right then, which was just different than when I'd seen you just quickly in passing throughout, our tenure here. And then couple that with the first time that we went golfing, Stone Creek.
Yeah.
I have a phenomenal shank. Thank you very much. And right off the first tee, I hit it hard right. And you just looked up at me like, well, you suck. and like, there's some people that'll be like, oh, that's okay. That's knock the dust off or whatever, right? Like, here's what I really want in a union president.
So it's somebody that's just blunt and honest.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to have to read between the lines. And frankly, are you glad you invited me?
That was good. That was good. Yeah.
Well, it's the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with what I've seen through the years is that ownership that happens, the gratitude that happens. It's a two-way street. It comes with truth, and there's a lot of other things that you live your life with a solid amount of direction through. And I think that is genuine through and through. And that to me is really important in any leadership position, especially the union president. I really am excited about the opportunity to have you in that position because of how genuine I feel you comport yourself, you carry yourself, the relationships that you carry. There's nothing disingenuous about Chris Hart.
I appreciate that. That's probably the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me.
Yeah, well,
no, I really do appreciate that. We didn't have a script. I didn't write that for you. That was very kind of you. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
thanks.
Totally.
What do you go for it?
Oh, well, tell me a little bit. So, I know that you're, and a lot of our membership, as we all know, we've had a massive changeover. There's been an unprecedented amount of new blood that's come into our local, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. We've lost a lot of really foundational folks, and there's a lot of legacy that we're standing upon, and that doesn't go, deaf upon me either. We're standing on the shoulders of some great leaders and some great founders. But we also have a lot of great people that are joining our ranks who may not know you more than union vice president.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about where you came from and kind of what is it about the IFF and the union that gets you to where you are right now?
Okay. Well, I like to tell one story, but I'll hold it kind of towards the end about why I got involved in union leadership. Brief bio, grew up in Westland, Oregon. My dad was a firefighter. He worked for Oregon City for 25 years alongside his brother-in-law, my uncle, Jack Lynch, who ended up being the fire chief there. And fire service never really crossed my mind until I went to University of Oregon, and after I graduated from Westland High School, and found nothing interested me. So then I ended up going to Chemeketa.
That's a much better choice than the U of O.
Yes.
I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. So then I ended up going to St. Louis, Missouri to pursue a relationship at the time, who I am still with to this day, several years later. And I ended up getting a fire job out there for a little. I ended up working for the city of St. Louis as a paramedic on an ambulance for 6 weeks. I probably got more experience in that 6 weeks than anywhere I've ever worked. Then I ended up getting a job right outside the city of St. Louis, Richmond Heights, and I stayed there for 3 years. I was hoping to move back to Oregon, but I figured, let them make some more PERS reforms and then get OPSRP into place before I moved back.
That's genius.
So
well thought out.
Ended up staying out there for 3 years and then got hired at TVFNR in 2004. And then, promoted to lieutenant, promoted to captain. Within my firefighter ranks, I ended up working at 57s for a couple of years after a little stint, or long stint at 53s. Kind of got a little angry with myself, so I figured I should probably leave and and find a different place. So I ended up going to 57s, working with Rocky. And if you don't get involved in union labor work or anything when you're working with Rocky, then, sorry about Chris Kreppel and Mike Schreier and Jason Gianelli. You guys should get more involved. But seriously, I mean, Rocky inspired me to get a little bit more involved. I ended up running for executive board while I was working with him. Was on the executive board for 10 years, and then ran for first vice president. But I'll tell you a little story. And we have it really, really good at Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue because we're a special district. We deal with management that is within our ranks that we have grown up with in the fire service. We don't deal with city managers and mayors to be able to get our budgets pushed through and stuff. So at Richmond Heights in Missouri, it was no collective bargaining in that state. The city manager came to us one day and said, "Hey, we're going to try to pass this 1/4-cent fire sales tax in the city, and it should roughly bring in $1 million." So he used the firefighters to go out on election day. We were standing outside the polls, and we got this thing passed. It was roughly, like I said, going to bring in about $1 million for the fire department. We had a shop meeting, and the city manager came in, Mike Shadle, fucking asshole. Sorry. I don't sugarcoat things. He proceeded to tell everyone in the room, "Thanks for helping us pass this. You're not going to see a penny of it." And Joe Nizzoli stood up, God rest his soul, stood up and said, "Fuck you," and left the room. And I'm not going to yell it as loud as he did, but that right there, not just what he said and how he said it, but just the sheer frustration for just the city government taking advantage of the firefighters to pass that and not even just had the gall to say, "You're not going to see a penny of it." I wanted to be like Joe Nizzoli, and just to be able to stick up for everybody, to stick up for what is right. And that really kind of got the fire burning in me. I was also out there during 9/11, working that day. That kind of, seriously, had an impact on my career. So again, I only tell that story about Joe Nizzoli because that to me is just a snapshot into, if we stick together and we do things and we get pissed off about things, we can make a lot happen. Now, yeah, we didn't see a penny of that, but you know what? The city manager knew that we weren't happy about it. Nothing we could do. We didn't have collective bargaining. We could have a work slowdown or whatever you want to try to do, but that's really what kind of got me fired up at an early age. And then working with Rocky, right, helped too. So,
So comparatively, you're right. I mean, we at 1660 in Tualatin Valley, we have a much different, in the state of Oregon, right? We have a much different setup than you would in Missouri. Looking forward and kind of, well, I guess maybe before even looking forward, when we compare and contrast what we have at TVF&R and what we have at 1660, because it's, a combination, obviously there's outside shops and that sort of a thing.
Yep.
How does that all play into where we are right now and all the hard work that's gone into getting us here and then taking that to the next chapter? What does the next chapter look like?
Well, there's always going to be things for us to accomplish, right? There's always going to be new programs, new things that we can be involved with, new collaborations with management. I think the biggest thing for me, give credit where credit is due. Rocky has been a great union president, right? He's going to be the local president. Will be 26 years at the end of the year. And, while I say they're big shoes to fill, I've got my own shoes. The local's going to look different, right? It's going to be the first time for probably 98% of our membership with a new union president. So it is going to look different. It's going to be uncomfortable. I can't sit here and say you're going to like everything. But I think going forward, and I said this in my campaign letter, I'm really focused on that labor management relationship. Chief Weiss and I, we went through the shit together. I grew up in the fire service under his leadership as a captain and lieutenant. And we do have a personal relationship, which I think is an advantage for us as a local to be able to have a relationship like that with the fire chief. And I'm not gonna sit here and say like, we're friendly. We have a great working relationship together because we do have the respect, because we did kind of grow up together, right? And you can't get much done if you don't have a healthy labor management relationship. And is there going to be some bad times? Absolutely. Is there going to be some great times where we can get a lot of great things accomplished? I believe so. So I think fostering a good collaborative relationship between labor and management, I think that's huge. I think one thing that we really kind of need to focus in on for the local itself is maybe just have a little bit more identity. I think we've got a lot of new people here. I think we have an opportunity to kind of maybe do a little bit of a reset, maybe structure the local a little bit differently, maybe have a mission statement so everybody just has an understanding of what we're doing and what we're here for. We've talked about streaming meetings. Maybe we do that. We'll have to talk about it as an executive board. But that's an idea. I think there's just a lot of things going forward that we can maybe do that we're not doing now. But we'll always have the contracts, we'll always have the grievances and all this kind of stuff but I think the biggest thing that I'm always going to go back to is just that labor management relationship, because as long as you're communicating and working well together, you can be productive together and accomplish goals together. Right? Does that make sense?
I think that does make sense. And I think you hit on a couple of real important points in that, when you go through the trenches with people, we always come out of that stronger, right? That suffrage together. We see it with every academy that comes through. Mm-hmm. You see it in the crews that have been together for a real long time, right? There's a degree of trust and an acceptance of vulnerability, right? I can be my genuine self because you've seen me at my most vulnerable states in sometimes, right? When I've gone through this shit together with you. And so I think there is real value in having that relationship, because it can be, going back to how we started, right? It's based on a genuine understanding of each other, and you having the genuine personality and having ownership and gratitude being the forefront in kind of who you are and what you believe in. I think that all jives really well with productivity. And I think that's all really important. And then as I look forward, our administration is changing as rapidly as we are. And when you look at some of the people that are up and coming in those ranks, those are all people that we have grown up with, right? Yep. Like, we're working with people that we have, again, gone through the shit together with, mm-hmm. and being able to have very open dialogue and move mountains that way. I think that's a critical recipe.
Yeah. And I think fostering those relationships when you do have hard times, it's easier to recover from those hard times. Mm-hmm. If you don't foster those relationships and you have hard times, it's just going to be harder to come back from. So,
yeah. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. I've experienced that through my marriage and through, mm-hmm. The evolution of my kids and some of the challenges that we've had with health stuff. My wife and I have had the deck stacked against us and our marriage with a variety, from everything from my career to disabilities and so on and so forth. And we're in the strongest marriage that I've, that I've experienced yet. And I think that sediment is there, that we have the ability to say what we need to say to each other. It doesn't mean that everything's peaches and unicorns. Anybody that's met the little generals, she tells me exactly where and how, right? But we can have very open dialogue, and we can run through those tough times together, and we have a foundation that we rebound off to, that allows us to move mountains. Yeah,
no, I think that's great, and I have met her, and you guys do have a great relationship. It's I'm not going to say unique, but I think it's amazing. I think it's great.
It's awesome.
So speaking of, we don't have to get into the weeds about the health issues and stuff, but you are on the health trust.
Right.
And so I don't know if we want to maybe talk health trust stuff and maybe what it looks like in the future and kind of my vision, I guess, as the local president kind of surrounding the health trust.
Well, I think that's a really good point is that's another place that you and I have worked and together and have kind of built a relationship. You know, I remember a few months back, it's probably the fire department time. It's probably been 2 years, but whatever. You know, Rocky put out a video saying, anybody that's interested in running for president, I'm not going to run again. Anybody that's interested, I'm actively and aggressively going to work on a succession plan, and I'm inviting you to come take part.
Mm-hmm.
And so most people probably know, but in case there's those that don't, so our health trust has a board of trustees. The union president sits as a voting trustee and has an appointee that the union president brings on as a trustee as well. So in that seat, and I think I've been on there for 4 or 5 years, something like that. I've seen a couple of different appointees that have come through recently. Not recently. How long's it been? You've been there?
Just like a year and a half.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a minute, but not a super long time. But you have then come in and started taking that appointee position. And I will say, you know, again, credit where credit's due. I learned stuff from Rocky every single meeting. The questions that he asks, the vision that he has, the way that he can kind of decipher, that is such a unique animal. And it is so complex that, you know, even after 4 or 5 years, I'm barely keeping my head above water and just kind of getting a grasp on what it is. We've got a lot of legacy members that, like Rocky, I learned from every single meeting. I learned from Gary Burton and Tim Noakes and Jimmy Samario, spent a lot of time doing it. There's a lot of learning that's gone on, but it is a steep learning curve. So there's some opportunities that it sounds like you've been able to take Rocky up on when it comes to that succession planning, the health trust being one of them. Is that a pretty accurate assessment?
Yeah, I think it is. I think there was a couple different things that you wanted to bring me in on because, well, I mean, as far as I know, I'm the only one that's talk to him about interest in running for local president. So he's brought me into the Portland Air Base bargaining this year.
That's a big deal.
And it's different because you're bargaining against the state of Oregon. And then he appointed me on the health trust. And I can't remember if I asked him to do that because it was one area that I'm like, I have no idea. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been crazy because I've told you this several times. I feel like I'm listening to Chinese or some foreign language. I just don't get it. There's a lot of acronyms, a lot of stuff, and you don't want to slow the meetings down to just ask questions like, hey, what does this even mean? We've talked about maybe myself and Mooseburger and Ryan Brown just sitting down with Tim Noakes and just kind of just getting a lay of the land and trying to have a better understanding. I think it was important for me to get on the health trust because that's one area I have no idea about. And I wanted to get to know. I felt like I needed to have a really good, solid framework about how the health trust works and everything about it if I'm going to be the local president. So that was one area that was kind of a weakness that I really needed to kind of dive into. And I mean, a year and a half, and I'm still just like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. It's
There's
crazy.
So much
and I
there.
think this year of all years is probably one of the craziest, right? Because we're getting hit pretty hard. I mean, we're getting some pretty big increases. But just to see the Brown and Brown and the people that we hire, the way that they come in and they do a great job for us. I mean, the trustees aren't the ones out there bargaining these deals with insurance companies, right?
Thank God.
Jody is a godsend, and Brown and Brown has been doing a great job at getting us the best deals that we possibly can. No stone goes unturned. I mean, we definitely get the best deal that we can. Is it going to cost the health trust some money? Yeah, because that's we're going to make those decisions, right? Do we go with this company? Do we do this? Well, this one's going to cost a little bit more. Yeah, but it's going to be this, right? So we're the ones making those decisions, and it certainly causes some discussion. But at the end of the day, I mean, when we vote on it, it's okay. and let's move forward. And this is what we're going to do. So it's like any sort of group of trustees or executive board or whatever it is that you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have healthy conversation. If you could provide an atmosphere and culture that's acceptable and everybody's going to be respected and listened to, I think that's huge. And I see that on the health trust. So
yeah.
I
think I think I could build a real strong argument that would suggest that may be one of our biggest benefits as 1660 members is the health trust.
Yeah.
When we're all keenly familiar and understand that if you're not good at home, then you're not going to be good at work. If you're not good at work, you're not going to be good at home. And healthcare is one of those things that can completely turn your life on its head. And I can't tell you, I mean, my family uses our health insurance without, no stone unturned, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, I lose track. It's in the hundreds, if not more than that, the number of times that I've given somebody our insurance card and they just look at like, where do you work?
Yeah.
That is crazy. So there's a huge benefit to that. And understanding the relationship between the health trust and Local 1660, the two, they're separate entities, but they really coexist together. And there's a really important blend there.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if there's more that you would want to say about what the union brings to the health trust and what that relationship looks like on the union side of it.
I think from my vantage point, and running for local president is you got to have an understanding that the health trust is here because of the local, right? The local's not here because of the health trust. And I'm not trying to say like the health trust, we're going to come in and just steamroll you guys. I think the local has certain things that they want and that they need. And, when it comes to bargaining and all that kind of stuff, we're bargaining the increases to healthcare and all that kind of stuff. So the local needs to have an understanding of where do these increases come from? What does it look like? Give me some predictions over the next few years, because when we go into bargaining, I'm not going to bargain just a 2% increase next year if we're going to have a 20% increase. Mm-hmm. If the prediction for next year, which we really don't know, but if the prediction for next year is going to be, it looks like an 8% increase. Well, maybe we know that going into bargaining that, hey, we're going to have to bargain a little bit more of an increase in this year, and then maybe just kind of hope for stuff in the next few years, right? Mm-hmm. But I think also the understanding on the local side of things is knowing that the health trust is so good with our money and we're doing such a great job that we can actually weather some of the costs sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be okay. So not to worry so much about the increases, but also know that we're going to have to certainly bargain the impacts of healthcare. But also having a history, right? The health trust was started by who? Mark Reed.
There's a list of people that Mark Reed was the only one that I know of.
But it was essentially local 1660 officers that started up the health trust, right? Yep. And then we can get in the weeds about it and educate our members about self-insurance, which I really can't sit here and tell you exactly what self-insured means and all that kind of stuff. But I guess the relationship between the health trust and local 1660, if that kind of helps. We're not here to make decisions for the health trust, but we certainly want to be able to have a good say in what the health trust operations are.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, I think here's a way that I've been able to see this play out here, especially just recently, is so with the significant number of retirees that are now coming back to the health trust, and we can kind of spell this out a little bit more in a little bit more detail. But when we talk about increases, every single year we go in and we negotiate just before open enrollment. Well, in the months leading up to open enrollment, Brown & Brown, the company that the health trust contracts with, goes out to a variety of different insurance carriers across, really the Northwest, and many of these are all national companies as well, and asks, what will you administer our plans for? At what cost? What it means to be self-insured and the way that the health trust is built is, it's not quite this simplistic, but a way to think about it is we have our own bank account, and Regents, who's our current carrier, you go to the doctor sends Regents a bill, Regents writes a check out of our checking account and pays the doctor. So that's why we're self-insured. It has been maddening to me to see over the years since we have become self-insured, the years that we've, if you call it, have done well, right? Insurance is a gambling game, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And obviously insurance companies are real good at winning. And to be able to see how well insurance companies have been winning since, over the years before we became self-insured is maddening to me. That's our money that the insurance, that Regents and Providence before that, right? That these guys have been taken to their bank. We've been able to do that, and we take in those funds now. Whatever money is left in at the end of the year, that is profit. And it's with those profits that then we are able to provide subsidies for our retirees. And that is one of the biggest worries of any retiree is what's health insurance going to cost me? And we're talking, to be able to, we have a really good deal for what it costs us for the product. If you were just to go out into the open market and try to buy our insurance policy, you'd be paying thousands and thousands of dollars. So the fact that we're only paying a couple $1,000s is still that's a real dollar value. That's a lot of money. And the subsidy that the trust offers, that we are very calculated and very conservatively and responsibly increasing, with the goal of being able to cover at least half of the out-of-pocket monthly expense that a retiree will have to pay. That's what we want to be able to cover. That's what we've said from the beginning of becoming self-insured. That's the whole idea, is to take that bite out of it and still be able to provide our members who are retired really good benefits and really great health care, so that they're not feeling like they got to go find the cheapest policy on the open market,
right? Because
they're not, So there's that aspect of it that is really important to understand, is what that means in retirement. But the other part of that is that now, as a lot of the people that we've all grown up with are now joining those retiree ranks, you are privy to some of those conversations. And so when we do have an increase, 1660 goes in and negotiates with the fire district as part of our collective bargaining, that they negotiate. Healthcare is one of the things that we negotiate, and that the district is going to pay so many dollars per month per employee to cover health insurance premiums. The employee doesn't see a fraction of the increases that we see, that the health trust sees every year, right? And 1660 negotiates that with the district, and the district pays that money. I didn't really totally feel that or understand it until I started seeing some really good friends of mine that have retired, and now they're looking at these as this is a real dollar for dollar right out of their pocket cost increase. When we increase increase our health insurance per month per member amounts of money, the district covers us on the line and that are active members, but our retirees are seeing that dollar for dollar right out of their pockets. So I guess it helped me to appreciate even more what the local does when they take and the value of having, in addition to just the historic value that Rocky's brought to the health trust and his ability to ask questions and to negotiate and be able to get the health trust and help contribute to bring the health trust to where it is. Also, his ability then to take that and as a union president and go and negotiate this incredible benefit that we have, and seeing how that if that wasn't happening and we were seeing these increases dollar for dollar, we're seeing pennies on the dollar while we're working in active members. And it hadn't really occurred to me and was kind of lost upon me what that really means, and what would that look like for my family if all of a sudden I'm paying $400 a month more for health insurance every single month, right? It's a big deal to go take a vehicle loan out or, whatever. Like that's a big deal. This is essentially the same thing, but I'm not getting anything more for it. I'm just maintaining my current level of service, right? So I want to express my appreciation to 1660 for those negotiating efforts, because that is that is helping. That's money in my pocket, essentially, and healthcare for my family, which is huge.
Yeah, and that's continuous. I mean, we have to bargain that every single time. So, I mean, I guess no pressure for the next local president.
Yeah, right. Good luck, man. I'm going to get another beer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, man, you really brought this party down.
Yeah,
let's talk about something really exciting, politics.
Yeah, let's do that.
You're involved in politics. I'm involved in politics just by virtue of my office as the Oregon State Firefighters Council District Vice President. I am also our political director for our local. Where do you want to kind of start here? Because you had said maybe give a brief kind of structure, kind of organizational kind of structure of the IFF and
yeah, you just said a whole lot of words that I don't understand. I feel like I just took a Chinese class.
Yeah,
tell me a little bit. Yeah,
tell me a little bit. Sign of disrespect.
Yeah, about like my golf swing. So yeah, let's talk. Help me to understand a little bit more. When you say district vice president,
yeah,
right? That's not the fire district.
No, it's not. Right. So Local 1660 is a local of under the IAFF, and the IAFF has a general president and a general secretary treasurer. Those are two principal officers, Ed Kelly and Frank Lima. Under Frank Lima and Ed Kelly is their executive board, and they have several district vice presidents, and the IAFF is broken up into districts, right, based on geographical location or population. Our district is the 9th district, and our district vice president is Mike Frenier. And we have Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming. And within each of those states, not every state has a state association, but here in Oregon, we do have a state association, the Oregon State Firefighters Council, and that's our legislative body. That's who's going to work down in Salem for you. We have a legislative director that's appointed by the executive board for the state. We have we've hired a lobbyist. So under the Oregon State Firefighters Council, we have a president, Carl Koenig, who was retired out of Clackamas. He was 1159's president for years, and secretary-treasurer Rocky Haynes. Maybe you've heard of him. And then we have several different
shoes, right?
Yeah, then we have several different districts within our state, and ours is the 6th district. And I am the district vice president for this area. It's essentially Local 1660 is our district. But you know, essentially, we're doing the work of what a district vice president would do. Other districts have other areas that aren't necessarily in their local, right? Gresham has Astoria, right? So Kevin Larson, who's the district vice president for the Gresham district, he sometimes has to meet with people from, Astoria.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's all, yeah. So, the district vice president out of Portland is Portland's local president. Most of the district vice presidents in state are local presidents. I'm probably the only one that's not. I think one of them just stepped down. Anyways, okay. But legislative body, that's who goes down to the Capitol on a regular basis and helps kind of get things passed or protect what we have, right? It's easier to, as Smitty used to say, it's easier to fight what we have than fight for what we've lost or whatever, right? Essentially. We have a PAC committee in our local, political action committee. There is a PAC at the IAFF. The PAC for the IAFF, it's all voluntary. The PAC for us is all voluntary. But the PAC for the IAFF is for a lot of federal candidates. We can't contribute to I just can't contribute to a federal race, right, with our PAC. We can certainly help with boots on the ground, all that kind of stuff, campaigning. Our PAC can help out with state elections, local elections, whether it's county commissioners or city council people. But I think what I'm trying to get at is as I went down that structure, when it comes to local 1660, we have a lot of counties and cities within our local. So building those relationships, having the relationships with county commissioners. So when you need to get stuff done within those counties or cities, you've already built those relationships, and then it's easier to get things done. It's kind of like the labor management relationship, but not really, because it's politics and it's just a different animal. So I'm building those relationships. I'm trying to. There's a lot of them out there. It's really difficult. And not only that, but being able to develop the relationships with people you don't necessarily support, but if they win, you will support them. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a race, it's like, well, we're going to support this person, but if this person wins, we're going to have to support them, and we're going to have to build a relationship. So being able to navigate those relationships during campaigns and early on, like, hey, this is why we're going to support this person and not you. But so it's such a different game. It's so difficult. But the advantage of being able to build those relationships, because you don't know if the mayor of West Lynn is going to be the next attorney general for the state, right? Who is going to be a decision maker. Or just not just but a congressperson, right? That's going to be able to pass some PERS legislation, or probably make some PERS reform that we don't like. So, it's really important to kind of develop those relationships early on. So when they do get into those positions where they're making decisions that are going to affect us, it's huge.
So when you're thinking about different candidates that you're going to endorse, and what constitutes an endorsement from 1660, the State Firefighters Council, right? The legislative bodies. What are you looking at? When I'm thinking, when you say we're down there fighting for you, what is it that I'm getting out of your fight?
Well, I mean, we're going to be able to support people that have firefighters and labor unions at the forefront and support them, right? So we're not going to support somebody that just wants to tear apart collective bargaining. I mean, if we lose collective bargaining, that's going to be horrible, right? We're not going to endorse somebody that's anti-union. But we are going to endorse people that are pro-union, that are pro-collective bargaining, that are there to hopefully make some changes to PERS that might benefit us. Social issues aside, we don't get into that. We don't care about what their stance is on abortion or guns or whatever, right? That's a different, maybe, I guess, lobbying group to kind of figure out if they want to support them, right?
Sure.
But as firefighters, it's wages, hours, working conditions, and retirement security. I mean, that's what we're there to protect. And that's what's going to keep our jobs. That's what's going to help, prevent you from having a worse retirement, 5 years away. Right? I don't want them to make PERS cuts now. I mean, so we need to be able to work hard and protect that kind of stuff.
And so when you compare, when you first started and you were working in Missouri, where collective bargaining does not exist.
It does now.
Oh, it does now. Perfect. So say more
but
about
not then.
Yeah. So say more about that and what the difference would be. What does that really feel like? And what does that physically look like to us to be able to work in a state that has collective bargaining?
Well, that's probably not a fair question for me, because it was so young in my career and I didn't really notice a ton. Because we still got paid pretty well. We still had a lot but we didn't have an opportunity to go to the fire chief and sit down and bargain a contract, right? I think we just kind of got pay increases based on what the city was going to give us. There probably was something in the city policies or whatever, or maybe the city council just approved a budget that gave just 3% pay increase citywide, that kind of stuff. So I think the biggest thing, the difference between like collective bargaining, non-collective bargaining states, I mean, you kind of see that just more at the local level. I think the similarities between collective bargaining states and non-collective bargaining states is we can have influences at state capitals, right? Utah just lost collective bargaining. You'd be damn sure you're going to be able to see a lot of firefighters at the state capitol trying to get collective bargaining back. So I think those political relationships still have a huge impact, no matter what state you're in. So
As far as, retirement goes, right? Is there a significant difference or in like you pointed out, that was early on in your career. A lot of us aren't thinking about retirement when you first get the dream job, right?
100%.
Is there a difference between retirement in Oregon versus retirement in states that are less supportive of unions?
Probably. I can't give specific examples. My retirement in Missouri, local 2665 is one of the largest locals in the IAFF, and I was part of it. The difficulty with that is imagine if Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, if each station was its own fire department.
No, got
and
it.
Each station had their own pension plan.
Got it.
So if you were going to go to a different department, you had to do it early on because you wanted to invest in their pension. So it was really messed up there. I mean, each individual city had their own pension plan. So there's a few special districts. But here, it's nice because, I mean, Washington and Oregon, we both have statewide pension plans, and it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
We have it really, really good.
Yep, absolutely. And it's not for a lack
Did you see that? I showed restraint. I was about to drop an F-bomb, but
I've never seen such restraint.
Wow.
I think we are real fucking good. I guess with that then, I had this really cool thought.
It happens.
Yeah, I know.
We are at 46 minutes. And if people have listened this long,
that's some shit.
I think they probably would want more from us, but we're not going to give it to them. I mean, we can give it to them a little bit now, but we're not going to make this a Chad and Chris podcast forever, right?
Yeah.
The Divot Room 2.0.
I don't think that would be smart. You'd lose viewership immediately.
I really appreciate this. And I think at the beginning when you and I were talking, I was like, I don't want this to necessarily be an informational podcast because I feel like I need to accomplish something with this is why I'm running for local president. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as we were talking, a lot of the information I think is just good information for all our members to have, whether it's political stuff, whether it's health trust. I mean, I think it's so good. There's so much information. And I love this media of podcasting to get information out there. And I think you'll see a lot more of this if I am the local president. This is a great way for me to be able to communicate. I can just, sit down here in the Divot Room and record a podcast and send it out pretty easily.
Well, I think that was kind of how I was going to summarize too, is that the intention of the conversation was not informational. This isn't a union update or an ops update or anything like that. But I think it's an example that demonstrates how multifaceted the position of the union president is, how many different areas within everything that is 1660 and TVFNR, how much that union president touches every aspect of that. And you're already involved in so much of that in thinking about succession planning and knowing that the biggest discomfort is just the unknown that's out there, right? You pointed that out, right? That's going to be uncomfortable to have the first union president in many of our careers change. Yeah. This is going to be a big deal. And so just seeing how plugged into all those different things you clearly are, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I know when I take on a new role, I feel like I know what I'm getting into, but then you have no idea until you do it. I've done that every promotion I've had. I've done that when I got elected to the executive board. When I got elected to first vice president. And if I get elected to local president, there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm like, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I know what I'm getting into and I feel like I'm prepared. But yeah, there's going to be some things like, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So it's like golfing with me. I didn't even think about that. Didn't know what I was getting into.
It's so funny that you brought that up. That's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anything else, dude?
No, man. Thank you for the time.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Appreciate you back.
All right. See you.
Yeah.